All right. Ready? Oh,
Ready?
Hello again, everybody. Another edition of Empowering Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm Glenn Harper.
Julie Smith.
How's it going today?
Sounds like you're a little tongue-tied today.
I am. I don't know what the deal is, but the coffee should kick in any minute. I
Well,
see you're back on the Starbucks.
I am, but just this is the first one of the week, so I'm doing well.
What is today? Thursday? That's great. Well, we've got a great show lined up for you today. We've got an incredible guest. I'm going to do my best on this introduction, and then our man here is going to tell us if we nailed it or not. I'd like to introduce Eugene Gershman, a real estate aficionado. If it involves real estate, he wants to explore and execute on it. He's the CEO of GIS Development and GIS Residential Construction. The companies do design, construction, development of real estate projects. A typical success story, LOL. He joined the family business and made it better. He's an obsessed entrepreneur that thrives on helping other construction companies become successful. Thanks, Eugene, for being on the show.
Thank you. Pleasure being here.
How'd we do on that intro? Does that sum up your life in 2 sentences or less?
Pretty much. So after that, I guess we're done, right?
Yep, that's it. We've got questions. We got lots of questions. No, we appreciate. I like to stalk our guests a little bit, and rumor has it that you're from Seattle, Washington, and where you regularly skulk on the Straits of Juan de Fuca. Is there any truth to that rumor?
Uh, haven't been to Straits Juan de Fuca in a while, but yes, visited there.
Are you close
Yes.
to that?
Uh, uh, I mean, last time we traveled through the waters was a couple of years ago, going up to Victoria, BC. But yeah, no, mostly east side of Seattle.
Okay.
Bellevue, Redmond, it's where we're based. Our projects are ranging pretty much all over the metro area. Recently, mostly down south on the south end of Seattle.
And Seattle's got its own ecosystem. It's just a very interesting place for people who aren't from Seattle. We have a hard time understanding the allure of it, but everybody I know that's ever been there say it's beautiful. The weather's kind of whatever, but it's just got this own ecosystem. Have you lived there your whole life, or did you move there? Did you go back and leave somewhere and come back to it?
It feels like I've been here my whole life, definitely more than half of my life. I was actually born and raised in Moscow, Russia, and finished high school there, and then moved here to go to college and stayed.
Well, I'm going to say that Glenn's going to fail his stalking
Nope.
class because
I found that nugget because one of the things is that it says he is a second language of Russian. I was like, well, how did that come about? Well, that explains it all. So again,
That's right.
intriguing. When you moved here, did your parents were here too? Everybody moved, or just you?
I moved with my parents.
Okay.
Some family was already here, so that's why we chose Seattle, just because my aunt and uncle was already here. And but yeah, it's I recently, in the last couple of years, due to politics, I don't like talking about it just because people get all,
Oh
political
yeah.
about it. But truth is truth.
You, it's great because one of probably the hardest things of coming to the country at your age is probably assimilating to the language and culture and all those things. It's had to be so different. But I would never known that because you can't tell you on your accent. That's awesome. Was it hard to get rid of your accent?
I feel I still have some, maybe before I wake up, that's why I'm working on my coffee. But uh, yeah, I don't know. I started learning English when I was, 8, I think. Just, taking like second language in school. By the time I graduated high school, I could pretty much understand most things. Then I came to America and started talking to people, and I'm like, holy crap, I don't understand anything that people are
Oh
saying.
my gosh.
Like this is not the language that they taught us. So yeah, it took some time to get used to the accent and
Like
some practice.
I'm telling you, the context and the inflection and the slang would has to be impossible because you probably learned it the proper way, and then you come over here and we don't talk like that. It's got to
Oh,
be.
I mean, starting from words like awesome that they don't teach you in the second language
Good.
class. Like,
Mhm.
what is that? My first experience in admissions office at University of Washington here, I asked a question and the gal goes, "How come?" I'm like, "What does that mean?" I understand the words, but what does that mean?
So, what we always try to figure out is how people get where they got there. And again, I'm going to jump. That's a few questions down the road, but Did your parents like what made them decide that they wanted to come to America? Because your aunt, or they had an opportunity? Because what year would that have been when you came here?
Well, that was mid 90s. We moved in 96.
96. Wow.
Yeah, early to mid 90s was a very difficult time back there. So,
Hmm.
a lot of our family have been moving out of the country. Some went to Israel, some moved to the US. We have a lot of family in Boston. This part of the family ended up in Seattle, so we chose Seattle.
Funny how you end up there. And then, did your parents, what was their, when they came here, did they have work right away? Or how, you just obviously started college when you came here, right? But did they started their company? I guess that was the whole GIS. They started that, your dad?
Well, so yeah, he started GIS back in Russia back in 92.
Okay.
So that business is still alive, somewhat. But so he kept going back and forth. I mean, we bought a few properties here along the way. And yeah, when I got done with college, I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do construction. He was a contractor.
Okay.
He wasn't so much a developer. He was a contractor. I had a lot of interesting projects that I kind of grew up following. But yeah, no, I got done with college and I'm like, no, I don't want to go into construction. It's too messy. It's too stressful. I'm going to go into finance because it wasn't stressful. Uh,
Did you work in construction while through college? Did your dad employ you on projects and things like that, or no?
no, no, not officially. I mean, I was kind of sitting in meetings all the time. My summers breaks, I would be involved and just helping out, looking over, I don't know, Excel sheets, looking over the documents, sorting papers. So I was kind of always in the mix. I knew what was going on. I knew the process. I knew all the people, but not formally.
You weren't like labor, like schlepping
No,
concrete and running, pulling wires and stuff. So he, at that point, he was not. He was more like he had the subs doing all that, and he kept you on this side of the business side of it.
right. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, the clean side.
Yeah, which is good and bad, right? There's a lot of satisfaction breaking down stuff and building stuff, but at the same time, whew, it breaks the body down, right? I mean, whew.
It truly does. Yeah, it truly does.
It's the family business that, and when I'm looking at your bio here, and you go to University of Washington, and you're like, here you are, you're studying English, you're doing what you do in Russia, you moved to Seattle, and you're like, I am going to go to University of Washington, and I'm going to do econ. How do you pick econ?
I didn't get into business school.
Ah, that, because I'm like, no rational person thinks of that unless they're going to work for the government or university. So I'm like, how do
So,
you?
at the time, it was funny. I usually don't say that, but I figured I'll be honest this morning. Uh,
Excellent.
uh, right. So a few years ago read a book. I forget the name of it, but it was talking about just broad education and good foundational background. And they said economics was actually one of the best degrees, college degrees, that gives you the broadest foundation for whatever you want to do in life. And of course, at the time, I didn't think about that.
Mhm.
At the time, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I actually started out pursuing computer science, and I took a bunch of math classes, physics classes, early computer science, and I think my CS second left. So I finished the first quarter, then started taking second quarter of programming, and that broke me. I was sitting there writing some code for, I
Yeah.
don't know, 2 nights straight, and then after a second all nighter, I'm like, this is stupid. I found the code wasn't working. I couldn't see why, and it wasn't working because I missed a comma, something,
20,000
ridiculous.
pages prior before, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm like, this isn't for me. This is too tedious. I see the big picture. I like solving problems, but sitting here writing code is just not for me. So I didn't pursue computer science. Started applying, figured I'd apply to business school, and UW actually had a separate admission process to their business school. And so at the time, English was my weakest spot. I mean, I was fine in math, but writing essays and explaining what I wanted to do wasn't for me. So didn't get enough scores to get into business school, and School of Economics wasn't part of the business school. So I'm like, okay, well, that's close enough. So that's how I got it ended up with a degree in econ, and then I ended up going back a few years later and got my MBA, got into Foster. Actually took an evening program. I continued working full time for the small investment firm here in Bellevue, and yeah, got my MBA. So in the at the end, I'm like, that was actually the best decision. I'm glad I didn't get an undergrad business because MBA is so much more useful.
You're
But
speaking
yeah,
Julie's language.
that's
I think you did something like that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think, when you go through something like that, you get so much real world experience from your peers.
oh yeah,
And it's not necessarily the textbook learning that everybody talks about, right? Like
right,
it's, oh, wow, you just went through that same situation that I'm dealing with wherever you may be, and taking just little nuggets from everybody and helps to really build who you are and where you want to go.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, I couldn't. I don't even know how I made it through college, and the thought of going back for something else was like, I just got to give the CPA test, and that was brutal enough. And I'm like, I'm so glad I'm done. And it's a lot. That's what Julie does. She takes care of those operational type things. So that's
Yeah.
been wonderful.
So when you got your MBA, what was your goal with that? What did you see yourself doing?
Um, while so my admission essay, I was talking about launching a new broker-dealer firm. So that was still we were still in the hangover of the dot coms. I started in what 2001, I think. Yeah, the market just crashed,
Mhm.
and half of our students, because I was in the evening program, half of our students lost their jobs and started taking up a bunch of day classes so that they could at least graduate earlier since they didn't have a job. But anyway, my admission essay, I wanted to start a new type of a broker dealer. I wanted to create some new efficient and computerized trading and investing platform, and it all sounded great. I was thinking like a tech startup here in Seattle. And during my last year of MBA, my dad calls me and he goes, so there's a project I got introduced to. It's all the way in Hungary, in Budapest. He goes, there's an investment opportunity that I'm thinking of investing, but also there's an opportunity for us to set up a branch of our construction office. I'm like, okay, well, that sounds cool. He goes, they sent me this huge stack of financial documents, projections, and they're all in English. He goes, do you mind taking a look at it and let me know what you think? So he sends me the stack of papers. I look at them, call him back. I'm like, yeah, on the surface, at least from what I'm seeing, it really looks like an attractive project. He goes, well, that's cool. So I'm flying over there next week to meet with these potential partners. He goes, do you mind joining me? Just help me out in the meeting. And there's a group of partners. Some spoke Russian, some spoke English, some spoke Hungarian. And so there could potentially be a language barrier. My dad speaks good English, but not as good as mine. So he asked me to join him for a meeting. I'm like, okay, sure, that's fine. I'll fly out to Hungary. So one meeting after another meeting after another set of documents, he's getting closer to making a decision to invest into the project. And then he calls me. He goes, so I think I'm going to do it. He goes, we're going to need to set up an office there. He goes, if only I had somebody I could trust.
Not enough O's and smooth. Your dad's smooth. God love him. I was wondering how this happened. Keep going.
And so I'm like, okay, okay, I suppose I could go. I still have one quarter left at UW, and I'm trying to remember what I did. I think I took an extra class um, before during the fall quarter so that I could, and then I took an online class. I forget the details, but anyway, I was able to get out about 4 months before the program was done. I got enough credits, got on a plane. That was what, January, February of 2003 or 2004, and ended up in Budapest, country that speaks absolutely crazy
Nothing.
language.
Yep.
It has nothing in common with any other languages that I knew. And but it was kind of a cool experience, fun city, a lot of history there, and yeah, that's how I joined family business.
So how did you navigate that obviously communication barrier?
It was interesting. So Hungary, because it was part of the
Lots.
old communist bloc for so many years, a lot of older people spoke Russian. and then most younger people would speak English.
Okay.
So between English and Russian, I was able to navigate over there. All of our partners, they spoke English, so that was easy. The staff that we hired, we brought in a guy from Russia, one of our construction managers, to move over there, and then we hired a couple of other Russian-speaking people in Budapest, and that's how we set up the office. But yeah, navigating around the country, it was funny. People from like mid-30s to mid-40s, that was the hardest because they didn't speak any other foreign language. But anybody younger than that or older than that wasn't a problem.
Did you find, because, of the, how the politics were of the region for the prior 40, 50 years, and then it changed, was there any hostility towards you as being Russian, or have you guys compensated that because you've already been an American and came back? And like, were you associated in any negative context? Because I feel like that would be a huge barrier to try to overcome, on probably the old school, right? The younger people probably were like, whatever, but the old school, was that a thing?
Sometimes, I mean, not. I didn't experience it at work.
Okay.
Socially, sometimes you go out to, I don't know, a store, restaurant, and trying to figure out what language to speak. Usually, default for us would be English when we try to speak to people outside. Most restaurants, like servers, would speak English, so that's always the default. But sometimes we'd have to switch to Russian. We get, some comments in Hungarian that we wouldn't understand. That by the look in their eyes, probably weren't very positive.
Yeah, you can't walk in and say, "Hey, we're from Russia. We're here to help." You can't really say that. You have to say it
Right.
a different way, and then that would probably agree. But again, that's the cool thing about the human experience, and what's great about like the American experience is that once you can break down the barrier, everybody really, they're human. They just want to work together, right? And they just want to get
Exactly.
good projects. And back to your getting sucked in with your dad. I mean, that's genius because family businesses are brutal, right? Like it's not your first choice because you watch what he had to go through. But
Right.
again, how do you trust the right person and you go do it? And then you were had a great opportunity to be able to go do that thing. How long did you stay over there for?
A little under a year.
Okay.
So we moved there in February, came back in December. The project actually never happened.
Okay.
Due to local politics, the partners were never able to get the building permit. When we moved, the permit was imminent, and then it was a very cool site, historical preservation, reconstruction of a historical site. So there was federal government involved and local government involved, and um
We didn't know who to give the
somehow,
kickback to. That's how I know how
yeah,
that works. It's the hardest part.
exactly. Somehow there was a contract with the federal government. There was supposed to be a permit from the local municipality, and for some reason that never came to be. So we moved back. Our partners were actually in litigation with the government there for many years. They ended up winning the case. It took about, I don't know, almost 10 years to win. Lawyers got paid well.
Always.
We got paid a little bit. But
Is it a safe assumption to say that your dad was, when you're an entrepreneur, you're kind of either doing business or building a business? Is it safe to say that your dad recognized that he was probably doing business and he needed to convert to be that entrepreneurial and be running a business where he's an investor, not out there grinding things out? And he recognized that you probably acquired that skill set with your MBA program and drop of a hat running to Romania and doing that for him. Do you think he saw the potential in you to say, hey, you could turn this company into something amazing? Or did he already have the amazing company and you were just added on to that?
he had a pretty good company. He was still is very entrepreneurial. Whenever he sees possible opportunities, he jumps into them. A lot of times we have to, kind of
Hmm.
slow him down, like, hang on, let's figure it out, let's see how it's done. But yeah, I mean, a number of years ago, probably about 20 years ago, he shifted from just actively running every single operations, because by then he already had a manufacturing facility, he had an architectural firm, design firm, he had several construction divisions, and he recognized that he can't be running them all. So he started bringing in people to specifically operate. And yeah, with my MBA, I'm sure he recognized that. Now, of course, knowing what I know now, I would have never hired myself. who hires a kid straight out of college to run a new division? That's just stupid.
It's potential.
You were hungry, I'm sure, for, to learn, to figure it out. And sometimes I think the further you're out of school or the older you get, right, you kind of lose a little bit of that. So you're in Hungary, nothing's happening. So you come back. Now what?
Uh, so before I came back, he bought a property here in Bellevue, and I kind of started evaluating it, running some numbers while I was still in Hungary to see if we could develop a project here. It was a partnership with another gentleman, the property owner. The initial ideas were it was a small piece of land, about 4,500 square feet, downtown Bellevue, which was a growing suburb of Seattle, with a few high rises. We started looking at what we could build there. It was zoned for mixed use residential. So we're like, well, we know residential. We could probably develop something. So when the project got canceled in Hungary, I packed up, moved back, and jumped right into this deal. We hired an architect. We ran an appraisal. We hired all the surveyors, and started going with the development process. Now, I'd never done that before. I since my focus was always on finance, I was pretty good with Excel, and was running all the projections. And so the way we started the business is by just hiring a bunch of consultants.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a ton of consultants that we've engaged, and that was our first project.
So at this point, had you come to terms that you were probably not doing what your admissions essay was on in your MBA, or were you still holding on to that?
Oh no, I forgot about it a long time ago. So I wrote that while we were still kind of on the rise. It was the year 2000. The market was just soft, but it didn't quite crash. It was before 9/11, right? So dot-coms were at the peak. So that's when I wrote the essay. When I got into the program, that's when the world ended. Effectively for that period of time. So the whole tech revolution was abandoned, and I still thought that I'd stay in financial services. So yeah, no, after a year in Hungary and after kind of working with my father for a while, it just seemed like that would be the thing that I'd stay here to do. Well, and besides, things were stacked up for me so that when I came back, there's already a project waiting, and I couldn't just say, no, I'm not going to run it. Since there's a project, we got to figure out how to get it built.
I think that
I think your dad's smarter than we.
Yes, he's genius. but to that point, I think the key thing where is, as an entrepreneur and trying to grow and do what needs to be done, it's so hard to trust somebody and hand it off and know that they're going to get it done. And that's in every place in the world. But I would imagine in Russian culture, it's hard to trust people, right? And here it's hard to trust people in America.
Right.
And knowing that, you're there you came over, you're not plugged in as much as you would want to be, for him to be able to trust you. And then you had to then go and have other people trust you. I mean, that's hard to do, but he knew that you could do that. And that was a lot to have him give up that
Right.
control for you. And guess what? You didn't shirk from it. You just jumped in and said, I got it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, honestly, the hardest part, I was in my mid-20s, running a business, walking into all these professional offices. They look at you like a kid. Like, what are you doing here?
What's he know?
You want to design a building, a tower, and like, come on, get out of here. So that was the hardest thing to overcome. The
Stereotype.
The biggest lesson from that time of my father's, he's like, look, all you got to do is dress to impress. Put up a suit and walk in there and talk about what you know and ask questions. And so that's what I used to do. Look at the pictures from mid 2000s. I'm wearing a suit. I'm here in Seattle, right? Nobody's dressing up.
Yeah.
And I had my suit, a sports coat, and
When do you think, so to do that, it as an entrepreneur, it takes a little bit of a swag to have that. Is that swag something you had just because of how you grew up, because of the transition over to Seattle, the transition back to Romania, the transition back over here? When did you develop the confidence to just say, look, the answer is yes, I'll figure it out later? When did that hit you? Like, you're like, I am the man, I belong here, I can do this. When did that happen?
Maybe he was born with it.
That's what I'm wondering. That's because some people are, some people aren't, right?
No, I mean it's a good question. I don't know how to answer that. I think maybe I was born with it. I think going back, I was like in my teens when we got our first computer, and I was messing around with it, like playing video games, whatever basic video games we had, and my family was like, "Look, at least learn how to like operate that thing." I'm like, "Well, how do I learn this?" And nobody knew how to we didn't have books on how to figure out computers, right? What they do, or how to write code, or how to even just use basic software. And my way of learning was just clicking buttons and see what happens. I figured I shouldn't be able to break it that easily. So that's always been my way of learning. It's just click a button, see what happens, and expect that I don't know anything.
So you're
And
curious.
right, and to this day,
Yeah.
my expectation is I don't know anything. I'll just go in and start figuring it out.
So that's terrifying for most people. As an entrepreneur, that's the mindset you kind of have to have. Was you think then you made that switch right then at that time? Or like, I'm just going to be curious about things and see what happens? Or were you more, well, I'll do this, but I'm really not sure about that, right? Some people are cold turkey, they just go change over, and other people, it takes a few steps of success, and then they're like, okay, now I'm over there. You feel like it was just a thing, and then there you were, or did it take some time?
I don't think I'm still there. I'm
I mean, you're still
every time.
curious.
Look, every time we have a challenge, I don't know the answer. I don't know how to get there. I don't know if we're gonna get there, but the only way to find out is to make the first step, and that's how I operate. Is when I see a challenge, my one of my favorite phrases, and people in the company hate me for saying that. I'm like, it's not rocket science. We can figure it out, and they're like, some of these issues are pretty damn complicated.
Hmm.
But I'm like, well, I mean, just
How hard
do
could it
this,
be?
and then we'll do that, and then we'll figure out how to get there.
Well, I think that's probably the premise too, is that once you assume the responsibility of taking on the project, you just know that if you don't know it, you're going to find somebody that does. You're just kind of like, you're going to make sure it gets done. You may not have to know it all, but you're going to take ownership of that. And I think that's a big nugget for our entrepreneurial audience, that you don't have to know everything. You just have to know where to look.
Exactly, exactly. Well, and our specialty for a while has been, and probably still is, doing projects that are difficult, that are critical areas, steep slopes, wetlands, or have some sort of challenges, unusual challenges, and we kind of pride ourselves in solving these problems. And that kind of stems from that mindset, is that yeah, maybe nobody knows how to solve this problem, and we're going to figure it out.
It
Uh,
seems like oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what I'm finding now is, in a lot of cases, even professionals with years of experience, a lot of times don't know how to solve certain problems. And you're kind of sitting there, it's kind of like going to the doctor's office and the doctor's looking at you and says, I don't know what's wrong.
Right.
And you're like, aren't you the person who's supposed to? I mean, it happens a lot, right? When they're like, well, we could try this, we could try that, but we don't really know. And so it's what we're dealing with a lot of times.
They call it the doctor's practice, the lawyer's practice, the accountant's practice. We were practicing because it
Right.
changes all the time. And can you pivot and adjust to that, right?
Yeah. I mean, it seems like early on you really had that light bulb moment of that you needed to surround yourself with people who were probably smarter than you, especially, in the early beginning. But as you've gone through your career and your journey, was there ever a time where it was just really imperative that you build a team? And what have you learned as you've gone through your journey about building teams and surrounding yourself with those people?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, especially as we started scaling and growing the construction division, um, I mean, it became apparent I'm not a builder. my favorite phrase is I know enough to be dangerous, but I don't know enough. So absolutely. Building a team, bringing in the people that know how to get the stuff done is imperative. And the hardest thing about it is finding the people who truly know how to get things done. Especially in the last decade, the labor market has been absolutely crazy.
Mhm.
Construction market over here has been insane. It's literally impossible to find construction professionals. It's hard to compete with the giants with unlimited, funds and unlimited marketing that throw into advertising positions. So it's been difficult. The hardest part has been attracting talent.
But you know what's funny about what, as I'm putting all this together, what you're saying is, you're actually, you know, you're more of an artist and you're a visionary to see a project and go, we can make that be happen. But they're not easy projects, they're hard projects. And most craftsmen don't want to just lay two by fours all day. They want to create and build something because that is that inner side of them. So I think you've probably acquired a team of workers and such and teammates that they like the hard projects. It challenges them, gives them fulfillment. And then you get to see that vision and challenge them, makes them better, makes you better, and makes the client probably really happy, is if I were to guess.
Right. I mean, we scale up, scale down, staff up, depending on the project's demands. And yeah, sometimes we promote from within. Sometimes we shrink down and let everybody go and start over. The core right now, the core is just the family. It's my sister has joined the company right out of college back in I forget 04, 05. Her husband now is a member of our team, so the three of us is kind of the core here that runs the company, and then everything else, yeah, we're fluid in that regard, and sometimes I feel like best person to get things done is myself, and I jump in and get it done. And sometimes we hire consultants or bring in a full time.
It's the family business and becoming an entrepreneur. Was your dad always had his own business, or did he start doing that later in his life? When did he decide? Did he work for somebody, then start his own business? How'd that happen? Because a lot of times as a kid watching your parent do their entrepreneurial journey and struggle, it usually pushes off a certain segment that I don't want any part of that. And then other ones are like, oh, I love that struggle. And then they want to, and they gravitate for it. But
Right.
again, so sometimes, did your dad say, I'm done with having a real job, I'm going to be an entrepreneur? Or did he always have those tendencies and you just kind of like got sucked in, as we say?
But Glenn, I think to that point, I think it's just different perspectives that people have as they grow up. So you may see it as a struggle where someone may see it as invigorating, and watching the people, go through those ups and downs, those hills and, whatever you call it. But I think honestly, it's up to each individual kid, as you would say, about how they perceive, what their parents are doing and what they're going through.
Right. I mean, my father's always been entrepreneurial, even working for a government job. I mean, keep in mind where he grew up, there was no private employment. You couldn't have a business right until 91. So he was working for his government job, but he's always had some side hustles. He was always trying to do more and make more money and become better. And I mean, he grew up the ranks and the management. Where he worked, but then as soon as he could start a business, he started a business. So I obviously grew up around that, so definitely rubbed off. But right now, I can't imagine doing anything else. I can't imagine working for a corporation. But I just had a conversation with my daughter the other day, and we're talking about family business. She's 16, and she's like, I wouldn't want to work in a family business. She's like, that sounds terrible. You guys always talk about work. She goes, I don't want to talk about work at a dinner table. I'm like, well, it's not work, it's life. She's like, no, I don't want that. I'm like, okay, well, you'll figure it out.
She, she will. It's,
How many kids do you have?
I have three. I have
Okay.
three, two older daughters and a son.
the trying to figure out on this journey of what this looks like, for like an end game, or is it just keep going like you said because it's just part of who you are at this point? Like, how do you get out of this? And there's really is no ever going to get out of it, probably. But I don't know. Is it something you want to build this thing and sell it? Does it depend on what your kid's going to do? Or are you just going to keep milking this thing and keep doing your thing? Because when you think about the opportunities you've been provided to be able to be in the right place at the right time in the U.S. where this is encouraged, it's very hard, but it's encouraged, and the path is there versus where you came from, where it was really, really almost impossible to do it. Like, that's a great opportunity that, again, people probably just don't even understand that there is the opportunity here to do it. And here you are slaying it. When is it going to end? Are you just going to keep going, or, build it and sell it, or just keep rolling with it?
Well, see, the thing about real estate is it's really project dependent. And that's why I'm looking at it. I have these thoughts. Can we ever get to a point where this development company becomes, I don't know, some sort of a ongoing business with history and systems in place and, new acquisitions, new development, new liquidations, to the point where we could just package it up and sell it? And I haven't figured out how to get this done yet. Most development companies that I know, they're so project dependent that when the projects end,
Over.
there's really no business. So as long as we keep acquiring new projects, as long as we keep doing new partnerships, and our acquisitions for us a few years ago, we switched to 100% partnership model. We don't like acquiring land. And it started out kind of out of selfish reasons, but it turned into an opportunity. The way we acquire new projects is by partnering with property owners. And opportunities keep coming, and as long as we keep running them, the business is there. At some point, maybe we could put people in place that they could just keep doing what I'm doing and what my family is doing, so that we could kind of step up and be above that. But I haven't figured that part out yet.
Isn't it fun, instead of being the owner of 100% of all the things you do, that you partner with people and help bring them up with you? I mean, that's got to be pretty rewarding when you get good partners and they get to be part of the process, spread that risk a little bit, but you're bringing everybody with you on the rising tide versus just it's all about you guys, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's what the model is all about. Is there's so many people that have developable properties, either they inherited the property from relatives, or they got into they figured that maybe they could buy a land and develop it. There's so many foreign investors here that bought up properties and hired an architect and said, let's develop something, and then quickly realized that it's quite a bit more complicated than just hiring an architect. And so that became a niche of itself, that we'd get calls from architects saying, hey, there's a development opportunity. You should really step up and help these guys out. Most of the requests that come to us is somebody who has development ambitions. They don't really know how to finance their deal. And so we come in and we help them with fundraising. We help them get the project funded.
I would look on the internet. It seems real easy. I don't know why you're making it so hard. It just says you got to do these couple of things and it's done to develop a project. I don't get that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Coming from the CPA seat over
Right.
there. So one question we like to ask our guests: what is your superpower?
My superpower: I'm pretty mean with Excel.
I could tell.
So every time we do a project, I run pro formas myself. I mean, I usually have somebody start it out, but then I quickly put them aside and just take over and running pro
So
formas. And
delegating is not your superpower. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm working on that. But no, but specifically, a reason is to know the project. You really need to know how pieces get put together. And that Excel model is everything for me. And so that's why I typically spend a lot of time myself working with the numbers, understanding the numbers, so that when I go out to investors, when I go out to lenders, when I speak to construction design team, I understand where things are put together. It's funny, when I was hiring a couple of years ago, we were hiring a new controller, and one of the questions I asked is, how well do you know Excel? They're like, well, I know Excel pretty well. I'm like, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10. They're like, well, probably like an 8. And I'm like, okay, well, what's the most complex function in Excel or feature that you've worked with? And based on that answer, I actually know how well they know it.
I'm like a 1, but I love it.
I'm a negative. I don't even like to open it on my computer. Um, what is your end game? I know we kind of alluded to this, and obviously you're trying to figure some of those things out, but where are you? What do you want to do?
I think the end game is to the two major divisions that we have is construction and development. And right now, our construction division is pretty much 100% dependent on the development division, on the projects that we bring. And the development division is pretty much 100% dependent on the core ownership team to propel the business forward. So the end game is to have two divisions self-sustaining, meaning to have all the systems in place where construction team can have its own management, its own process, and could go out and bid on projects independently. And be if the development division stops bringing in projects, I want the construction company to survive and have their own, exist based on their own merits. And then the development group is working on the new fundraising platform right now so that we could always have access to fundraising or funds for new projects. And then we already have, some sort of a backlog pipeline of new partnerships come in from property owners, but I would like to strengthen that. And I think once all of these places are filled and that machine is working, then I could, elevate myself above that. And hopefully then we can talk about packaging up and selling it or, transitioning into some other form.
So that was really a trick question, and I loved your answer. But at the end of the day, I still think you're going to be dabbling in Excel and making sure everyone's doing everything they're kind of supposed to be. And even as you package it up and let it go, I don't see you fully stepping away because you're so immersed into it. And you can just tell you have a passion, and it definitely is fulfilling to you and what
Oh,
you're.
absolutely.
So there's
Look,
no end game.
as a business owner, you're always involved. I mean, maybe I'm just the unique idiot here, but I'm involved in everything. The other day, locks weren't working right at the building, and I drove out there with a screwdriver, took it apart, and try to figure out what's going on there. It's just how it works.
There's nothing wrong with that. Well, it has been a pleasure talking with you today. I appreciate you taking your time, Eugene. And I don't know if you want to give it a little plug of your companies or whatever, just real quick. We can throw something in there if you like.
Absolutely, yeah. So GIS companies, GIS development, the website is giscompanies.co. We're in all social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. And our core business is multifamily, single family development. So partner with property owners. So if you got a property that you're trying to sell, don't try to sell it. Right now is perfect time to develop it. So give us a call.
Well, that's awesome. I really appreciate you being on the show, EG. And I think I can call you that now. So we're good.
He's
Oh
been
yeah,
waiting
that works.
all episode to do that.
Well, thanks. Another good one, Julie. Great talking to everyone. And we'll see you later.
Thank you guys. Pleasure being here.
Boom.
Thank
All right.
you.
That was fun. Appreciate you being on the show. That was good.
You
Of
have
course.
a
Thanks.